In this video, we will learn about the Census Community Data website, the data within it, and how to access it. Use the information to learn more about your community or service area, and use this information to set goals or make decisions about the future of the library. When we talk about strategic planning for the library, we're talking about planning for library services that effectively meet our community's needs. Of course, you live in your community, and so you already know quite a lot about the people you're serving and the changes you've seen over time. By reviewing your community census data, you can check your assumptions about your community and perhaps also discover some new insights about your demographics and who might not be using the library. This information can help you plan for library services that are relevant to your community. Let's start by navigating to the Census website, data.census.gov. Type in either your county or the city where the library is located. Depending on your service area, you may wish to complete this exercise for both the city and county population. After you have searched for your city or county, you will see a link under the map that says View Profile. Click on that link to learn more about the demographics and characteristics reported to the U.S. Census Bureau. The Decennial Census and the American Community Survey, or ACS, are part of the Decennial Census Program of the U.S. Census Bureau. Since 2005, in order to provide detailed community information more frequently, data that were historically collected only once every 10 years by the Decennial Census long form have been collected monthly and released annually through the ACS. As you scroll down through your community's data, you will see a number of tabs with data from the Decennial Census or the American Community Survey. You can scroll down the page to review all the data, or you can jump to a specific tab using the toolbar at the top. Let's start with the population and a review of the demographics for your area. Populations and people. In this section, we can find data on the median age in our community compared with the median age in Montana. Please note that next to most data figures, you will see a figure with a plus and minus sign, indicating the margin of error for that data point. You will also see a hyperlinked code, which could take you to the data table if you wanted to see more information about that data point. Population breakdown by age and sex in our community. Percentage of residents speaking languages other than English at home in our community compared with all of Montana. Percentage of native and foreign-born residents in our community compared with all of Montana, and of those residents born elsewhere, percentage of U.S. citizenship in our community. Percentage of residents aged 65 and older in our community compared with all of Montana. Percentage of residents who moved in the last year compared with all of Montana, including a breakdown of residential mobility in our community. Percentage of residents who are veterans compared with all of Montana, including a breakdown of veterans by sex within our community. Questions for reflection. What are the top 2 age groups for your service area? Do you see people from those age groups in your library? Why or why not? Have a lot of people moved to or from your community? How has this affected the way that people are using the library? Income and poverty. In this section, we can find data on the median household income in our community compared with all of Montana. Median income by types of families in our community. And the percentage of residents below the poverty line in our community compared with all of Montana, including a breakdown of those residents by age within our community. Questions for reflection. Did any of the data in this section surprise you? How would you apply this information to your library's plan of service? Education. In this section, we can find data on the percentage of residents who hold a bachelor's degree or higher in your community compared with all of Montana. The breakdown of education levels among residents aged 25 and older in our community. The percentage enrolled in K-12 schools in our community compared with all of Montana. And the breakdown of school enrollment within our community. Questions for reflection. What is the most common level of education in our community? How can the library best serve our community's lifelong learning needs? Employment. In this section, we can find data on the percentage of government employees in our community compared with all of Montana. Percentages of different types of employment status within our community. Average travel time to work in our community compared with all of Montana. Means of transportation to work in our community. Percentage of eligible residents employed in our community compared with all of Montana. Percentage of residents over 16 years old working within different industries in our community. Percentage of different categories of jobs within our community. And mean usual hours worked each week within our community, including a breakdown by sex. Questions for reflection. Has the local economy in your community changed over the past several years, or has it remained mostly the same? What about unemployment rates? How have these trends affected the way that people are using library services? Housing. In this section, we can find data on the median gross rent in our community compared with all of Montana. The percentage of occupied units paying rent in different price ranges compared with all of Montana. The percentage of homeowners in our community compared with all of Montana. The percentage of homes falling within different value ranges in our community. The total number of housing units in our community compared with all of Montana. The number of occupied and vacant housing units in our community. The type of households in our community. The percentage of residents who moved in 2021 or later in our community compared with all of Montana. Among those who moved in 2021 or later, percentage of owners and renters. The percentage of occupied housing units by number of bedrooms in our community. And the number of vacant housing units in our community. Questions for reflection. How has the real estate market in your community changed over the last few years? Have these changes had an effect on the demographics in your community? What does this mean for library services? Health. In this section, we can find data on the percentage of the population that is disabled in our community compared with all of Montana. Among those disabled in our community, the percentage breakdown by categories of disability. The number of women aged 15 to 50 years old in our community compared with all of Montana. The number of women with births in our community over the past 12 months. The percentage of residents without health insurance in our community compared with all of Montana. Questions for reflection. What percentage of your population reports having a disability? What are the most common forms of disability in your community? What might this mean for services that your library offers? What ideas do you have for providing better access to your existing library services? Families and living arrangements. In this section, we can find data on the percentage of residents under 18 years of age in our community compared with all of Montana. Children under 18 by age range in our community. The average family size in our community compared with all of Montana. The type of households by percentage in our community. Marital status in our community compared with all of Montana. Marital status by sex in our community. Questions for reflection. What does our youth demographic look like in our community? How is our library serving this demographic? Race and ethnicity. In this section, we can find data on the number of residents in our community and across Montana who self-identify with one or more racial categories. Questions for reflection. Did any of this demographic data about your community surprise you? Next steps. As you reviewed the profile for your service area, what was surprising? What, if anything, do you think your library should do differently based on this information? Reviewing data can be a useful part of your planning process, and especially when combined with community input, can help paint a more complete picture of your community's current status and emerging needs. Think about what else you wish you knew about your community. How could you find out? Perhaps a community survey or focus group could give you the opportunity to discuss these findings and ask for input on your planning process. What does the library do, or what could the library do to make the biggest difference for your community? What are a few things that you, the board and director, would realistically like to accomplish in the next 3 to 5 years? Sometimes you'll discover issues in your community that are out of scope for the library to address. But in other instances, you may find that the library can play an important role in serving a community need. Think about how you communicate your priorities to your local government officials, decision makers, and members of the public. We hope this overview has been helpful. For more information about using data for planning, please see the other videos in this series on our YouTube channel and check out our Strategic Planning Handbook on the Montana State Library website. You can find this by navigating to Montana State Library, Services to Libraries, Library Development, Directors, and Strategic Planning Handbook. Your state library consultant is also available to help you with your planning process.